Good afternoon. We are the Group 11 and we are about to discuss PAS 40 or also known as investment property. But before anything else, let me introduce the presenters for this day. So first, we have Junel Planos, Joyce Kensenting, Michelle Lucao, Maria Basaliote, and yours truly, Jetro Austria. So in today's discussion, you will learn what is investment property, what are the examples of investment property, and also on how to account for it initially and subsequently. So let's start by defining what is investment property. So according to the paragraph 5 under PAS 40, investment property, these are actually the land or a building or part of a building or both that held to earn rentals or for capital appreciation. So in order to be classified as investment property, unang requirement, dapat the property should be land and building, no other form of assets. At pangalawang requirement naman, the property, probably the land or a building, must be held to earn rentals or for capital appreciation. So that means if an entity has a building, dapat ito ay lease out to other entities. Hindi mismo yung may-ari ang gagamit kundi ibang tao. Because if the property used or occupied by the owner, hindi siya classified as investment property. Kasi nga, from the word investment, it actually referring to the passive income. So, ang passive income, actually, ito yung mga income earned ng isang entity in which the latter does not actively participate. So, in short, to be classified as investment property, dapat yung building owned is for rentals or for lease. And also, if an entity has a land, dapat it is either for rent or held for capital appreciation. So, when we say capital appreciation, this is the increase in price or value of the assets. And as we all know, that land does not depreciate its value as time goes by. So if the company held its land either for rent or for capital appreciation, this will classified as investment property. So take note for the two requirements in classifying investment property. So let's go to the classification. So paragraph 8 provides a list of examples of investment property. So una, land held for long-term capital appreciation. So obviously, the land held for long-term capital appreciation, needless to say that this will be classified as investment property since hindi siya ginagamit ng company and is just being held for capital appreciation. Pangalawa, land held for currently undetermined future use. So if the future use is currently undetermined, nag-appreciate pa rin po yung value ng assets. So basically, the land will also be reported as investment property. And then we also have building leased out under operating lease and a vacant building held to be leased out under operating lease also. So kahit vacant building yan pero ang intention mo is to lease out under operating lease, classified pa rin as investment property. And we also have building under construction or developed for future use as investment property. So if the building being developed or constructed is talaga pong ang kanyang magiging silbi is sa company is an investment property, basically the building being constructed or developed will be recorded as investment property. So those are the examples laid out in the paragraph 8 of PAS 40. So okay, ano naman po ang bagay na hindi dapat i-record or i-recognize which is outside the scope of PAS 40? So under paragraph 9, these are the properties not classified as investment property. So number 1, property held for use in the production or supply of goods or services or for administrative purposes. So yan po yung mga assets na ginagamit natin para makapag-produce ng goods or services or ginagamit natin for administrative purposes like yung office building na ginagawang company premises, that would not be recognized as investment property but rather classified as property, plant, and equipment under PAS 16. We also have property held for sale in the ordinary course of business or in the process of construction of development for such sale. So lahat po ng assets na binebenta natin in ordinary course of business will qualify under PAS 2 or inventories. We also have property being constructed or developed on behalf of third parties. So hindi siya classified as investment property kasi ito ay construction contract for the third parties at bukod doon, hindi rin natin pagmamay-ari yung property na iyon. And then, property leased out to another entity under finance lease. Again, only those building rented out under operating lease is classified as investment property. Kasi ang finance lease, rent to own siya, tayo yung umuupa to acquire ownership. Pero pwede namang maklasify as investment property provided na this rent to own building is also rented out under operating lease. And lastly, owner-occupied property. Kasama po lahat ng property held for future use as owner-occupied property or property held for future development or construction, pero ang paggagamitan sa kanya as owner-occupied property or property occupied by employees and owner-occupied property awaiting for disposal. Lahat po niyan ay under ng PAS 16 and not PAS 40. So now let's have an illustration. So ABC company has the following assets. Una, land held for undetermined future use, 1 million. Vacant building to be leased out under operating lease, 2 million. Property held for use in the production, 4 million. Land held for long-term capital appreciation, 1.9 million. 1 million. Land held for sale in the ordinary course of business, 1.9 million. Equipment leased out under operating lease, 1.1 million. Building under construction to be used as office, 2.9 million. And lastly, building being constructed for XYZ Incorporated, 1.5 million. So requirement, determine the total investment property of ABC company. So here's the following classified as investment property. So una, land held for undetermined future use na 1 million. Land vacant building to be leased out under operating lease, 2 million. And land held for long-term capital appreciation, 1 million with a total of 4 million. So obviously, itong tatlong to ay classified as investment property kasi they are listed in the paragraph 8. So ito naman yung mga property or transaction na hindi classified as investment property or outside the scope of PAS 40. So una, property held for use in production. So yung mga property na ginagamit ng company in producing goods ay hindi classified as investment property. Under siya ng PAS 16 or property, plant and equipment. So pangalawa, land held for sale in the ordinary course of business. So yung mga land na binebenta ng company in ordinary course of business, hindi siya classified as investment property, kundi classified siya sa inventory or under PAS 2. Pangatlo, equipment leased out under operating lease. So una pa lang, hindi na siya classified as investment property kasi unang requirement, dapat land or building yung property. Since ito ay equipment, na kahit under for operating lease yan, hindi siya classified pa rin as investment property but accounted as part ng property, plant and equipment or under PAS 16. Pang-apat, building under construction to be used as office. So yung building is kino-construct siya para gamitin as office. So ibig sabihin owner-occupied siya, so hindi siya classified as investment. Classified siya as PAS 16 or under property, plant and equipment. So lastly, building being constructed for XYZ. So hindi siya assets ng company. So therefore, hindi siya dapat classified ng company as investment property. Pero dahil ito ay accounted under PFRS 15. So next, partly investment property and partly owner-occupied. So may mga building or property na dual purpose. Pwede siyang partly investment property and partly owner-occupied. So, suppose that this is a 5-story building. The first 3 floors rented out under operating lease or as investment property, and the other floors are used as administrative offices or owner-occupied property. So, this scenario is an example of partly investment property and partly owner-occupied. So, what will be the classification of this building? So, under paragraph 10 provides the rules on how are we going to classify and account those properties that are partly investment property and partly owner-occupied. So, una, if the portion can be sold separately or leased out under finance lease, separately, they are accounted for separately. So, dito, if can be sold or leased out separately daw, the entity should account the portion as investment property and the other portion as owner-occupied. For example, let's say that this building has a fair value of 10 million and met the requirement of the first rule. So we therefore account them separately by prorating the floors being rented out and floors used as offices to the total floors that building has and multiply it to the fair value of the building. So for the allocation of investment property, so we have the fair value of the building, which is 10 million, multiply by 3 floors over 5 floors, or the total floors. The product is 6 million. So this 6 million is allocated as investment property, and the rest, or for the owner occupied, 10 million multiplied by 2 floors and divided by the total floors is equal to 4 million. So this 4 million is allocated to the owner occupied property. So second rule, if the portion cannot be sold separately, the entire property is classified as investment property only if the owner occupied portion is insignificant. So kapaligtaran nung una, if ever na cannot be sold separately, ang determining factor natin is yung significant portion. Ibig sabihin, kung ano yung masigit yung portion or sakop, the entire amount of the property is allocated either investment property or owner occupied. So for example, let's say that this building has a fair value of 10 million ulit and you cannot be sold separately. Titingnan natin kung ano yung mas significant yung portion. So based sa example, mas significant yung investment property kasi 3 floors yung portion niya at sa owner occupied 2 floors lang. So therefore, the entire 10 million is allocated only to investment property. So to be able to understand, let's have another illustration. ABC company has a 10-story condominium building with a carrying amount of 4 million. The first 4 floors are being rented out to tenants under operating lease, and the rest are used as office space. Each portion of the building can be sold separately or leased out separately. So requirements: how much is classified as investment property and how much is classified as owner-occupied property. So base sa problem, may 10 floors yung building with a carrying amount na 4 million. Then yung 4 na floor is rented out to tenants under operating lease. And the rest, yung 6 is owner-occupied property. And sabi dito, each portion of the building can be sold separately or leased out separately. So therefore, we need to allocate the 4 million sa portion ng investment property and owner-occupied property. So, para makuha yung allocated amount, kunin natin yung carrying amount, or then multiply natin siya sa 4 floors, yung sakop or portion ng investment property divided by the total 10 floors. So, ang makukuha natin is 1.6 million. And this 1.6 million is allocated sa investment property. And the rest, or the difference between the 4 million and the 1.6 million is allocated sa owner-occupied property, which is 2.4 million. Illustration 2 tayo. Same problem sa illustration 1. Pero dito, each portion daw of the building cannot be sold separately or leased out separately. Therefore, kung ganito yung problem, we need to determine kung ano yung significant portion, kung investment property ba or owner-occupied property. So, based sa problem, 4 floors is rented out under operating lease. So, ito yung portion na investment property. And the 6 floors used as office space. Ito yung portion naman ng owner-occupied property. Since 6 floors ang portion ng owner-occupied, siya yung significant. So, there will be no allocated amount for the investment property. And the entire 4 million is only allocated sa owner-occupied property. Ancillary services to occupants. This is seen in the paragraph 11 under past 40. So, ano bang ibig sabihin ng ancillary services? So, ancillary services, these are actually security and maintenance services provided by the lessor. Because normally, kapag umuupa tayo, may ancillary services na binibigay or pinuprovide ng lessor. So, ang tanong ngayon, how do we classify these ancillary services? So, first, we have to determine if these ancillary services are insignificant or significant. If the services are insignificant to arrangement as a whole, the property is classified as investment property. If the services naman are significant, the entire property is classified as owner-occupied property or PPA. For example, ABC company owns a building being rented out to various tenants under operating lease. The ABC company provides security and maintenance services. The building has a carrying amount of 1 million pesos, and leasing is not the primary business of ABC company. So sinabi sa problem na leasing is not the primary business of the company. So therefore, from that, we can say that provided ancillary is insignificant. Ibig sabihin, the entire amount of the building is accounted as investment property. Another illustration. ABC company owns a building operated as hotel. ABC company provides security and maintenance services. The building has a carrying amount of 1 million. Requirement: how much would be classified as investment property? So the company's building is operated as hotel, and we know that provided ancillary services are significant because in hotel, the security and maintenance services are part sa operation ng hotel. 'Di ba kapag nag-book tayo sa hotel, hindi naman tayo yung naglilinis ng hotel room natin, kundi yung mga housekeeper ng hotel. At part iyon ng operation nila. Therefore, the entire property of the building is classified as owner-occupied property. So, ang sagot dito is 0 kasi hindi siya classified as investment property but rather owner-occupied property or property, plant, and equipment.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Julois Consenting, and I will be discussing the investment property in consolidated financial statements. A property that is leased by a member of a group to another member, parent, or subsidiary does not qualify as investment property in consolidated financial statement because from the group's perspective, the property is owner-occupied. However, the property is classified as investment property in the lessor or owner's individual financial statement. Yan. We have here an illustration. ABC Corporation owns a 90% interest in XYZ Incorporation. During the year, ABC rented out a building to XYZ. As of the year end, the building has a carrying amount of 1 million. So we have two parties, the ABC Corporation and the XYZ Incorporation. First, we have to identify their relationship. ABC Corporation is the parent and the XYZ Incorporation is the subsidiary. Let us note that ABC Corporation owns 90% interest of XYZ. In this problem, we were asked how much would be presented as investment property in consolidated financial statement. Based on the definition we read earlier, the answer would be 0 because the building will be classified under property, plant, and equipment. Dahil meron silang parent-subsidiary relationship, kung ano yung pagmamayari ng isa, ay siya rin pagmamayari ng isa. In short, group's perspective, ang building na nirenta ni ABC kay XYZ is classified as owner-occupied. Pero sa separate financial statement, dahil magkaiwalay na sila, the building will be classified as investment property. Now we'll discuss kailan tayo magre-recognize by investment property. First, it would meet the definition of investment property, which is the mentioned earlier. Second, the asset recognition criteria of probable future economic benefits that are associated with investment property will flow to the entity. We'll think about associated rewards and risks and reliable measurement of cost. This rule is very similar to the rule in IAS 16 for property, plant, and equipment. So maybe you are familiar with that. Initial measurement. An investment property is initially measured at cost. The measurement of cost depends on the mode of acquisition. Acquisition by purchase. The cost of a purchase investment property comprises the purchase price and any directly attributable costs incurred in bringing the asset to its intended condition. For example of directly attributable costs is the professional fees for legal services, property transfer taxes, and other transaction costs. The cost of an investment property excludes the following: the cost of day-to-day servicing for the asset, for example, repairs and maintenance expense. Next is startup costs, unless they are necessary to bring the property to the condition necessary for its to be to be capable of operating in the manner intended by the management. Next is operating losses, incurred before the investment property achieves the planned level of occupancy. Next is abnormal amounts of wasted materials. These are labor or other resources incurred in constructing the or developing the property. If the payment is deferred, the cost is the cash price equivalent. The difference between this amount and the total payments is recognized as interest expense over the credit period, unless it qualifies the capitalization under PAS 23. The cost of self-constructed investment property is its cost at the date when the construction or development is completed. For example, cost of material, labor, and overhead. Paano naman pag nagkaroon ng exchange of assets? Exchange of assets. The measurement of investment property acquired in exchange for another non-monetary asset depends on whether the exchange transaction has commercial substance or not. With letter A, with commercial substance. An exchange has a commercial substance if the entity subsequently cash flow are expected to change as a result of the exchange. The asset received is measured using the following order of priority. First, fair value of the asset given up, plus cash paid or minus cash received. Second, fair value of the asset received. Or third, carrying amount of the asset given up, plus cash paid or minus cash received. Letter B is lacks of commercial substance. The asset received is measured at the carrying amount of the asset given up, plus cash paid or minus cash received. No gain or loss arises if the asset received is measured at the carrying amount of the asset given up. We have here an illustration about initial measurement of investment property. ABC Corporation has the following transaction during the year. Purchase building to be held as investment property for 1 million. Direct costs incurred amounted to 20,000. Cost of day-to-day servicing for the asset totaled 5,000. Constructed building to be used as investment property. Total costs incurred include the following: materials, labor, and overhead, 2 million. startup cost 100,000, operating loss 50,000, abnormal amounts of wasted materials during construction 20,000. Land acquired with currently undetermined future use by issuing note payable with face amount of 1 million and present value of 800,000. Land to be used as investment property was acquired through exchange. Fair value of asset given up in exchange for the land is 3 million. Fair value of the land is 3.6 million. Additional cash paid for the land received is 500,000. The exchange has commercial substance. In the first paragraph, we will be using the formula we showed in acquisition purchase. The cost is equals to purchase price plus direct attributable cost. The purchase price is 1 million pesos plus direct cost of 20,000 pesos. The 5,000 pesos is not included because it is a cost of day-to-day servicing, which is in the list we have excluded earlier. Second bullet, pansin na natin na ang 2 million lang ang included dahil yung tatlo, which is the startup cost, operating losses, and abnormal amounts ay kasama rin sa list ng cost na excluded sa investment property. Sa third bullet, land acquired. The land will be measured at 800,000. As I mentioned earlier, if the payment is deferred, we will use the cash price equivalent. The present value can be also considered as cash price equivalent in this question. Fourth bullet, it is indicated that there is a commercial substance yung problem. So we will consider the order of priority na na-discuss kanina. Check natin kung ano yung mga given. We have fair value of asset given up na 3 million. Fair value of land na 3.6 million and additional cash paid na 500,000. Ang unang nasa order of priority is fair value of the asset given up plus cash paid or minus cash received. Lahat ng nandito ay given na sa problem. So, pwede natin gamitin yung first priority, which is the fair value of an asset given up plus the cash paid, which is the 3 million plus the 500,000 pesos. So, meron siyang initial measurement ng land na 3,500,000 pesos. Remember, kapag hindi indicated yung commercial substance or lack of commercial substance, pwede nating i-check yung mga given sa problem kasi doon tayo makakakuha ng hint kung ano yung tinatanong niya. Kung nabigyan tayo ng fair value, baka with commercial substance siya. So, for the solution, we have purchased building 1,020,000, constructed building 2 million, land acquired through deferred 800,000, land acquired through exchange na 3,500,000. So we have total initial cost of investment property na 7,320,000. And that's all. Thank you. And Miss Lukiao, you may now take the virtual floor.
Okay, so for the subsequent measurement, after initial recognition, an entity chooses either the cost model or the fair value model as its accounting policy and applies that policy to all of its investment property. So the entity has two options to account for the investment property at reporting date. Ito nga yung cost model at fair value model. Whichever model is chosen, it should be applied for all the investment property held by the entity, meaning only one method shall be used. For example, meron kang tatlong investment property. Hindi pwede na yung isa naka-cost model tapos yung dalawa naka-fair value model. Ang pwedeng gawin ng company dyan is magkakaroon ng change from fair value model to cost model or cost model to fair value model. Kung sa tingin ng company, it will be more appropriate presentation for the investment property. However, there is a mention in past 40 that it is highly unlikely that a change in fair value model to cost model will result in a more relevant presentation. Tulad nga ng sabi ko, using both models selectively for items of investment property is prohibited. However, may mga case na exceptional. Let's say first, you choose fair value model. Then, meron kang asset na dating, let's say, owner occupied. Yung dating part ng building, ipapaupahan mo na. Yung dating part ng admin building, ipapaupahan mo na. The problem is, hindi mo ma-determine yung fair value. Ang tawag doon, exceptional case, where there is a new asset, but because of the nature, nagkaroon ng change at napili nga ng entity na fair value ang gagamitin, ang problema, yung bagong asset na papasok ay walang fair value. So therefore, exceptional case yon where all of your investment property are under fair value at may isa na under cost model. But again, mas gusto pa din ng standard na under one model lang ang lahat ng investment property ng entity. Next slide. So let's talk about the cost model. An entity that chooses the cost model shall measure the investment property using the cost model under PAS 16 or PPE. If the investment property is under the cost model, the subsequent measurement will be the same with PAS 16, which is equal to the carrying amount, and to get the carrying amount, that is cost less mo ng accumulated depreciation, less mo ng any accumulated impairment losses. If an entity chooses the cost model, the standard still requires the entity to disclose the fair value. Under PAS 40 states that it requires an entity to determine the fair value of its investment property regardless of the accounting policy. Kasi under fair value model, the fair value is used for measurement purposes, while under the cost model, fair value is used for disclosure purposes. Kasi pag i-present mo pa rin siya at cost doon sa face ng financial statement, sa disclosure, kailangan mo pa rin ilagay yung fair value ng asset. Next is fair value model. Under this model, an investment property is subsequently measured at its fair value at the end of each reporting period. Investment property is remeasured at fair value. What is fair value? Fair value is the price that would be received to sell an asset or paid to transfer a liability, an unorderly transaction between market participants at the measurement date. In short, ang basis na fair value ay kung magkano siya sa merkado. Gains Gains or losses arising from the change in the fair value of investment property must be included in net profit or loss for the period in which it arises. Basically, in the financial statement, when the investment property is ginamitan mo ng fair value model, ang nare-recognize niya in every decrease or increase in the fair value of the investment property, magche-check tayo ng gains or losses. Kapag tumaas or nag-increase ang fair value ng assets, that's a gain that will be included in the computation of net income. Kapag may decrease, that will be considered as a loss. Take note, under the fair value model, hindi tayo nagde-depreciate ng asset. Also, in determination of fair value of investment property, the entity should avoid the double counting by not considering the different items separately, which are the part of investment property, such as items includes lifts or yung elevator, air conditioning, furniture and fixtures, and other integral parts of the building. So for the illustration 1, cost model and fair value model, JK Company entered into the construction of a condominium in Mandaluyong City. The entity's board of directors decided to hold the said property for purposes of earning rentals. The construction of the condominium was completed and placed in service on January 1, 2019. The cost of the construction was 50 million and has a useful life of 25 years. Residual value is 5 million. An independent valuation expert provided the following fair value information at December 31, 2019: 55 million, 2020 53 million, and 2021 60 million. Requirements: A. Under the cost model, how much is the depreciation expense to be reported on 2019, 2020, and 2021? And B, under the fair value model, how much is the gain or loss from changes in fair value to be reported on 2019, 2020, and 2021? Next slide. So, solution for the requirement A. Pag cost model, ide-depreciate ko lang siya na parang property, plant, and equipment. Ang pakialam ko sa kanya ay ang asset cost, residual value, and useful life in years. Pero kapag fair value ang gagamitin, wala tayong pakialam sa residual value at sa useful life in years na para natin siyang ide-depreciate. Hindi po natin papansinin ang ganon. Dahil pag fair value model, ang gusto po nating makita yung increase or decrease in fair value at the end of each reporting period. So for the question number 1, how much is the depreciation expense to be reported each year? So ganito lang po. Kung magkano yung cost ng investment property, which is 50 million, i-deduct po natin yung residual value na 5 million. So that is your depreciable amount and divided by the life in years, and that is your annual depreciation, which is 1,800,000, and that is already your depreciation in your 2019, 2020, and 2021. Pero pagdating natin sa fair value model, magkano daw yung gain or losses in each year? So, ang papansinin lang po natin ay yung information about the fair value. Wala na tayong pakialam sa residual value at life in years. So, nung siya ay na-complete noong January 1, 2019, 50 million siya. But at the end of 2019, ang kanyang fair value ay tumaas ng 55 million. So there's a gain of 5 million for the year 2019. So how much will be recorded as a investment property at December 31, 2019? So basically, yung bago na niya fair value, which is yung 55 million. Now, for next year, bumaba siya ng 53 million. So, magkakaroon ka ng 2 million na loss for the year 2020. Umangat ulit, going to 60 million. So, magkakaroon ka ng 7 million na gain for 2021. So, ganun lang po siya. So, illustration 2, inability to determine fair value reliably on initial recognition. XYZ company uses the fair value for investment property. On January 1, 2021, XYZ acquired a plant for 1 million to be rented out under various operating leases. The plant has an estimated useful life of 10 years and a residual value of 200,000. Due to its special nature, XYZ assessed that the fair value of the plant cannot be determined reliably at initial recognition and on a continuing basis. Answer: XYZ shall be permitted to measure the newly acquired plant at cost. All other existing investment properties shall be measured under the fair value model. Tulad nga ng explanation ko kanina, there are cases that are exceptional as there are assets na hindi na-determine ang fair value. Where there is a new asset but because of the nature, nagkaroon ng change, nag-acquire, at napili ng entity na fair value ang gagamitin, ang problema, yung bagong asset na papasok ay walang fair value. So therefore, exceptional case yun where all of your investment property are under fair value model at may isa na under cost model. Illustration 3, inability to determine fair value reliably after initial recognition. On December 31, 2021, LM& Company determined that the fair value of one of its investment property cannot be determined since the active market ceased to exist. LMN has been using the fair value model and did not have any trouble determining fair values of the investment properties until now and only for one of its investment properties. Is LMN company permitted to change the cost model for the one property whose active market ceased to exist? So the answer there is no po. Kasi under PAS 40, if an entity has previously measured an investment property at fair value, it shall continue to measure the property at fair value until disposal or until the property is reclassified to PPE or inventory, even if comparable market transactions become less frequent or market price becomes less readily available. So that's all for the subsequent measurement. Next reporting po, please.
So next topic is the transfers. Transfer to or from investment property are made only when there is a change in use. So basically, in the absence of change in use, or if wala namang change in use, walang transfer na mangyayari. So here are some examples of transfer. So A, una is the transfer from investment property to owner-occupied. Pangalawa, the transfer from investment property to inventory. Pangatlo, the transfer from owner-occupied to investment property. And the last, transfer from inventory to investment property. So paano ba natin malalaman if may transfer or may change in use na nangyayari? So as evidenced by the following, A, there must be a commencement of owner occupation for the transfer of investment property to PPE. Pangalawa, there must be an end of owner occupation for the transfer of PPE to investment property. There must be a commencement of operating lease to another party for the transfer from inventory to investment property. And there must be a commencement of development with a view to sale for the transfer from investment property to inventories. So para mas laro nating maintindihan, let's have some scenario. You are engaged in a real estate business. So pag sinabi nating real estate business, nagbebenta siya ng mga real estate, mga house and lot. So yung mga normally, yung classified houses and lots that you are selling as inventories. O yun yung sinasabi ko sa inyo. Pag real estate business, yung mga house and lot, kina-classify as inventory kasi binibenta siya. However, if you rent out some unsold inventories under various operating lease, these rented properties shall be classified as investment property and not inventory. So yun, may transfer na nangyari, may change from investment property from inventory to investment property. So scenario number one day, you decided to sell one rented property. You decide that you can sell the property without redeveloping it first. So under PAS 40, are you permitted to reclassify that property back to inventory? So sinasabi dito, for the transfer from investment property to inventory or from inventory to property, there must be a commencement. May declaration. May declaration na papaanan mo na siya, paparentahan mo siya, or may declaration na i-develop mo siya, may redevelop with a view to sale. So pagdating dito, wala namang redevelopment na nangyari. Diba? Sinabi dito, you decided that you can sell the property without redeveloping it first. So, wala. Ang answer dyan is no. You are not permitted to reclassify the inventory because there is no change in use. That is, there is no commencement of development with a view to sale. So next scenario, what if you decided to redevelop the property first before selling? Are you permitted to reclassify that property to inventory? Syempre, yes. You are permitted to reclassify the property back to inventory because there is a change in use. That is, there is a commencement of development with a view of sale. Scenario number 3, in relation to B, when will you reclassify the property it is? 1, at the time you decided you want to redevelop the property. Number 2, at the time redevelopment commences. Or 3, at the time redevelopment is completed. So, the answer is at the time redevelopment commences. So, scenario number 4, one day again, you decided to renovate one rented property so you can charge higher rentals. After renovation, you will still rent out the property. Under PAS 40, are you permitted to reclassify the property out of investment property during the renovation period? So kung titingnan natin, dating investment property yung building. Let's say building siya. So dati siyang investment property na pinarentahan mo, tapos may redevelopment na nangyari. Pero after renovation, you will still rent out the property. So, after renovation, investment property pa rin siya. So, may change in use ba nangyari? Wala. So, if walang change in use na nangyari, walang transfer na mangyayari. So, the answer is no. Since the property will still be used as investment property after redevelopment, it continues to be classified as investment property during the renovation. Hindi siya i-reclassify out of investment property during the renovation period kasi investment property pa rin siya pagkatapos ng renovation period. So next scenario, you have a property that's being rented out and is property classified as investment property. One day, you decided to redevelop the property and that after it is redeveloped, you will use the property as your office. How should you classify that property during redevelopment? So, for example, building na siya. Dati siyang narerentahan, so it is classified as investment property. And then, may redevelopment na nangyari. Tapos, after redevelopment, gagamitin mo na siya as your office. So, may change in use na nangyari from investment property to PPE or to owner-occupied. So, how should you classify the property during redevelopment? Siyempre, reclassified mo na siya. Ika-classify mo na siya as PPE, as property, plant, and equipment because there is a change in use. There is a commencement of development with a view to owner occupation. So ngayong alam na natin kung paano i-identify if may change in use or may transfer na nangyari. Ang problema na natin ngayon kung paano siya i-record. So there are two ways kung paano mo siya i-record. There is a transfer using the cost model and a transfer from fair value model. Sorry. So let's focus muna sa transfers under the cost model. So, transfer to or from investment property, owner-occupied property, and inventory. So, ang treatment dyan, transfers are made at the carrying amount before and after the transfer. So, carrying amount siya, carrying amount yung gagamitin mo kasi cost model tayo. So, paano nga ba nakukuha ang carrying amount? So, it is the historical cost o yung original cost niya, LLS mo yung accumulated depreciation niya. So, yung answer doon, yun yung carrying amount. Except when the asset is impaired. So, paano nga ba na-impaired ang isang asset? So, di ba, pag cost model, gagamitin natin is carrying amount. Ang isang asset kasi, isang example building, ganun, meron siyang carrying amount, meron din siyang recoverable amount. Ngayon, if ang recoverable amount is below the carrying amount o mas mababa siya, meron tayong impairment loss or the asset is impaired. So in which case, the impairment loss is recognized immediately in the profit or loss. So para mas lalo nating maintindihan, let's have some example or some illustration. So on January 1, 20X1, Quarantino Corporation decided to lease out under operating lease one of its building that is previously used as office space. The building has an original cost of 3 million and a carrying amount of 2 million and a fair value of the carrying amount is 1 million and a fair value is 1,200,000 as of January 1, 20X1. Quarantino Corporation uses the cost model for both PPE and investment property. The building has a remaining useful life of 10 years as of January 1, 20X1. Quarantino Corporation uses the straight line method of depreciation. So, provide a journal entry to be made on January 1, 20X1. So, since it is a cost model transfer from PPE to IP, so paano nga ba siya nagiging PPE to IP? So, di ba, sabi dyan na Quarantino Corporation decided to lease out under operating lease one of its building that is previously used as office space. So, dati siyang office space, tapos nag-decide ka na parerentahan mo siya. So, may change in use. Diba? May transfer from PPE to IP. So, since it's a cost model, ang gagamitin natin dito is yung carrying amount, hindi yung fair value. Kasi sabi naman dyan, Quarantino Corporation uses the cost model. Diba? So, paano nga ba siya re-record? So, ganito siya re-record. Since it's a transfer of PPE to investment property, yung carrying amount na 1 million is yun yung carrying amount ng investment property mo. Then, i-credit mo yung building na 3 million original cost. And then, i-squeeze out mo lang yung accumulated depreciation niya. So, paano naman kung may impairment? I know, i-record din pala natin yung depreciation niya. Since given naman doon. So, depreciation expense and accumulated depreciation na 100,000. So, paano ba siya nakuha? It's the 1 million divided by the 10 years na useful life. So, 1 million divided by 10 is 100,000. Yun yung depreciation niya. So, paano naman yun pag may impairment? So, on December 31, 20X1, Covida Corporation decided to use as office space one of its building that was previously leased out. The building has an original cost of 3 million and an accumulated depreciation of 2 million. The recoverable value of the building is 800,000 as of December 31, 20X1. So Covida uses the cost model for PPE and investment property. So requirement, provide the journal entry. So since it is a cost model, kukunin muna natin yung carrying amount. So di ba original cost niya is 3 million. Then yung accumulated depreciation niya is 2 million. So meron tayong 1 million na carrying amount. But the recoverable value ng building is 800,000 lang. So 1 million minus 800,000, meron tayong 200 na difference, which is the impairment loss. So paano nga ba siya re-record? Ito na siya. Debit to impairment loss na 200,000. Then i-debit mo na din yung building na 800,000. Yun yung recoverable value ng building. And then yung accumulated depreciation na 2 million, then i-credit sa investment property na 3 million. So, paano naman pag fair value model ang gagamitin o yung ginamit? So, the transfers from investment property to owner-occupied property or inventory, ito yung treatment niya. Transfers are made at fair value. Siyempre, fair value model yung ginamit. Siyempre, fair value din yung gagamitin mo. Which becomes the property's deemed cost for subsequent applying either past 16 or past 2. So past 16 is the PPE and past 2 is the inventory. So any resulting increase or decrease in the carrying amount is recognized as profit or loss. So for better understanding, let's have some illustration. On December 31, 20X1, Social Distance Corporation decided to use as office space one of its building that was previously leased out. The building has fair values of 1 million and 1,200,000 on January 1, 20X1 and December 31, 20X1. So respectively, Social Distance Corporation uses the fair value model for investment property. So since yung change in use or yung transfer is nangyari December 31, 20X1, yung gagamitin natin na fair value is yung fair value on December 31, 20X1, which is the 1,200. So, paano ba siya re-record? So, i-record mo siya as building na 1,200,000, then investment property na 1,000. So, yung difference na 200,000 is yung gain. Gain in the change in fair value. Kasi, yung fair value ng building nung January 1, ng investment property pa lang siya is 1 million. Then yung fair value niya ngayon, na transfer mo lang siya as PPE, is 1,200,000. So, meron tayong 200,000 na gain. So, another is the transfer to investment property from owner-occupied property. So, ang gagawin dito, you must update first the carrying amount up to the date of reclassification. So, any resulting increase in the carrying amount is treated as follows. So, ganito yung treatment niya. The A represents the carrying amount before the previous impairment. The B naman is the carrying amount on the date of transfer or the carrying amount after the previous impairment. So the C is the carrying amount had no impairment loss been recognized. And the D, the fair value of at the date of transfer. So yung increase is recognized in equity by subtracting the D, the fair value at the date of transfer, and the C, the carrying amount had no impairment loss been recognized. So, ang increase dyan, i-record mo siya as the evaluation surplus kasi increase in equity siya. Then the increase recognized in the profit or loss is the C minus the B, or the carrying amount on the date of transfer minus the C, the carrying amount had no impairment loss been recognized, minus the B, the carrying amount at the date of transfer. So any resulting increase will be recognized as the profit or loss. So total increase in the carrying amount is i-add mo lang yung dalawa. Yung increase sa equity and increase in profit, i-add mo. Yun yung total increase in the carrying amount. Pero nakadepende pa din yun sa amounts. So let's have some example para mas nalang maintindihan. So on December 31, 20X1, ABC Corporation decided to reclassify a building previously used as owner-occupied property to investment property. So ABC Corporation determined the following. So historical cost of 3 million, the accumulated depreciation of 2 million, the carrying amount at December 31, 20X1 na 1 million. The carrying amount had no impairment loss has been recognized previously is 1,200,000 and the fair value of 1,600,000. ABC uses the fair value model for investment property. So provide the entry to record the transfer of the building to investment property. So ito yung solution niya. So using yung kanina, so yung A is not given. So diretso tayo sa B. Yung B natin, yung carrying amount at the date of transfer is 1 million. So, yung C natin, the carrying amount had no impairment loss previously recognized is 1,200,000. At yung fair value natin at the date of transfer is 1,600,000. So, using the formula, the increase recognized in equity is the fair value minus the carrying amount had no impairment loss previously recognized. So, it's the 1,600,000 minus the 1,200,000. So, may 400 tayo na difference. Yun yung i-recognize natin as re-evaluation surplus or the increase recognized in equity. And next naman, yung increase recognized in the profit or loss, yung C minus B. Yung C is the carrying amount had no impairment loss previously recognized. And the letter B naman is the carrying amount at the date of transfer. So, mayroon tayong difference na 200. Which is recognized in the profit or loss. So total increase in the carrying amount is 400 plus 200 is equal to 600. So paano siya i-record? Ganito lang siya i-record. So investment property na 1.6, yung fair value ng building at the date of transfer. Then isasama mo na din yung accumulated depreciation yun na 2 million. Then credit to the building na 3 million. Then re-evaluation surplus, yung increase in equity na 400,000. And the gain on reversal of impairment loss or the increase in the profit or loss na 200,000. So, ganyan lang siya i-record. So, another, the transfer to investment property from owner-occupied property. So, any resulting decrease in the carrying amount is recognized as impairment loss. So, unless the property has a re-evaluation surplus recognized in the equity, in which case the re-evaluation surplus is decreased. First, and any excess is charged to profit or loss. So pag may impairment loss daw, na-recognize, and then meron namang revaluation surplus na na-recognize sa equity, una daw ang LLS, yung revaluation surplus, yun yung sobra, yun lang yung i-recognize mo sa profit or loss. So, para mas maintindihan, let's have some illustration. So on December 31, 20X1, ABC Corporation decided to reclassify the building previously used as owner-occupied property to investment property. So ABC Corporation determined the following. Historical cost of 3 million, accumulated depreciation na 2 million, the carrying amount na 1 million, revaluation surplus na 200,000, and the fair value na 700,000. So, since it is fair value model, yung gagamitin natin dito is yung 700 na fair value. Pero yung carrying amount naman ng building is 1 million. So, meron tayong 300 na difference, which is the impairment loss. Sabi dito, unless the property has a revaluation surplus recognized in the equity, in which case, the revaluation surplus is decreased first and any excess is charged to profit or loss. So, kung may 300 tayo na impairment loss, then may 200 tayo na revaluation surplus. So, 300 minus 200, may 100 na lang tayo. Yung 100, yun lang yung i-record natin as impairment loss. So, ganito yung solution niya. Ayan. Fair value on December 31, 20X is 700, di ba? And the carrying amount is 1 million. So, may 300 tayong na-decrease in carrying amount. Then, meron tayong revaluation surplus na 200. So, 300 minus 200, may 100 na lang tayo i-record sa impairment loss, 100,000. So, paano siya i-record sa journal entry? So, ayun. Investment property na 700, which is the fair value. The accumulated depreciation ng building na 2 million. Then, yung revaluation surplus mo na ginamit mo para sa 300 na loss. Then, yung impairment loss mo na 200. Kasi 300 minus 200, may 100 ka pa nakulang. Kaya, yun na rin na-record mo na 100. Then, the building na 3 million. So, another, transfer from investment property to inventory. So, any resulting increase or decrease in the carrying amount is recognized in the profit or loss. So, para mas nalang maintindihan, here are some example or illustration. On December 31, 20X1, ABC Corporation decided to redevelop its building to be sold in the ordinary course of business. So, ABC uses the fair value model for investment property. Fair values of the investment property are fair value on January 1, 20X1 is the 1,700,000. The fair value on December 31, 20X1 is the 1,600,000. So provide the entry to record the transfer of the investment property to inventory. So since nangyari naman yung transfer at December 31, 20X1, ang gagamitin natin is yung fair value ng December 31, 20X1, which is the 1,600,000. Pero, nung January 1, 20X1, yung investment property pa lang siya, is 1,700,000 yung cost niya. So, paano na siya i-entry? So, ito. Yung fair value ng December pa din yung gagamitin mo sa inventory na 1,600,000. And then yung investment property na 1,700,000. So, may difference na 100, i-recognize mo siya as loss. Kasi 1,700 sa dati, tapos nung transfer mo lang siya is 1,600 na siya. So, may loss ka na 100. Unrealized loss on the change in the fair value. So, next topic is the recognition, which is discussed by another reporter.
Okay, let's now explain when an investment property needs to be recognized from the financial statement. So, the recognition. Nasabi sa past 40 na we can recognize investment property in the following circumstances. On disposal, or when no future economic benefits are expected or permanently withdrawn from use. Example na lang, kunwari binanta mo yung property o kaya naman wala na siyang silbi kasi nga, pare na, yung pinapauhaan mong building na sunog. O kaya naman, hindi mo na talaga siya gagamitin to earn rentals or for capital appreciation. Saka natin siya i-recognize or i-recognize natin siya. So, when we recognize investment property, then we should calculate gain or loss. The difference between the carrying amount and net disposal proceeds is recognized as gain or loss in profit or loss. Meron tayong sample problem dito. Sabi dito, Sabi dito, nagbenta daw si Simple Company ng investment property with a fair value of 85,000 for 100,000. So Simple Company uses fair value model. Provide the entry to record the disposal of the asset. So mag-debit tayo ng cash, 100,000. Credit investment property, 85,000. So may gain tayo na 15,000. So credit gain on sale, 15,000. Next. Dito naman, bumili daw si Conehead Company ng investment property noong January 1, 2016 for a cost of 220,000. The property had a useful life of 40 years and at December 31, 2019, had a fair value of 300,000. And on December 31, 2020, the property was sold for or binenta yung property for 290,000, incurring disposal cost of 10,000. The Conehead uses the cost model to account investment property. So what is the gain or loss to be recognized in profit or loss for the year ended December 31, 2020 regarding the disposal of the property? Sagot po dito, letter B, 87,500 na gain. Paano nakuha ito po? So meron tayo kanina sales price na 290,000. Ilalas natin yung disposal cost na 10,000. So meron na tayong net disposal proceeds na 280,000. Ilalas natin yung carrying amount of the property sold na 192,500. Paano nakuha po yun? Yung 220,000 na cost times natin 35 remaining useful life over 40 years. So, meron tayo 192,500. So, again, net disposal proceeds plus carrying amount of the property sold. So, meron tayong gain on disposal na 87,500. Next, self-constructed investment property. Sabi dito, a self-constructed investment property is accounted for in much the same way as a purchased investment property. So dito, tayo yung nagpagawa ng investment property o ng property. Next. So, initial cost includes in self-constructed investment property direct attributable costs like materials, labor, and construction overhead. And exclude the cost of abnormal amount of wasted material, labor, or other resources incurred in constructing or developing the property. And it is measured using either cost model or fair value model. So, yung fair value model, pwede natin siyang i-apply during construction period. Pero, kung hindi natin ma-determine hindi natin ma-determine yung fair value hanggang sa matapos yung construction, then the investment property is temporarily measured under the cost model. The difference between investment property cost and fair value is recognized in profit or loss. Next. Next is subsequent expenditure. So, unrecognized investment property, subsequent expenditure are generally expensed if they clearly meet the recognition criteria. So, these are the criteria. First, when it had a probability of future economic benefits flowing to the entity. Second is the cost being reliably measurable. Past 40 states an instant where a subsequent expenditure is capitalized, which is the replacement parts of an investment property. So, replacements are accounted for cost model or fair value model. So, under cost model, the cost of the replacement part is capitalized to the investment property if it meets the recognition criteria, and the carrying amount of the replaced part is recognized and charged as loss. And while under fair value model, cost of the replacement part is capitalized to the investment property, and any difference between fair value and carrying amount is recognized in profit or loss. Next illustration po tayo. Replacement of parts under cost model. So sabi dito, sa ABC company ay bumili ng building noong January 1, 2016 for a total cost of 6 million and classified it as investment property. The building is estimated to have a useful life of 10 years. The ABC company uses the cost model for its investment property and a straight line method of depreciation. On January 1, 2020, the elevator of the building is replaced for a total cost of 800,000. Assume that the cost of the old elevator that is replaced is 500,000. What are the entries to record the replacement? So, to recognize the old part that is replaced with accumulated depreciation na 200,000. Ito po yun, yung 500,000 na cost times 4 na ito yung from January 1, 2016 to January 1, 2020. So, times 4 over 10. So, meron tayong 200,000. Credit investment property building na 500,000. So, squeeze natin. So, meron tayong loss on replacement, 300,000. Magde-debit tayo ng loss on replacement na 300,000. So, to recognize naman the new replacement part, debit investment property, credit cash na 800,000. Next, letter B. Assume that it's impracticable to determine the cost of the old elevator that is replaced. What are the entries to record the replacement? So, yan. So, to recognize the old part that is replaced, debit accumulated depreciation at 320,000, credit investment property building na 800,000. So, meron tayong loss on replacement na 450,000. Debit tayo ng loss on replacement na 420,000. And to recognize the new replacement part, debit investment property building, credit cash na 800,000. Next, under fair value model. So, ABC Company acquired building on January 1, 2016 for a total cost of 6 million and classified it as investment property. And ABC Company uses the fair value model for its investment property. On January 1, 2020, when the carrying amount of the building is 4 million, the elevator in the building was replaced for a total cost of 800,000. It is impracticable to determine the fair value of the replaced part. So, what is the entry to record the replacement? On January 1, 2020, magde-debit tayo ng investment property building, 800,000, credit cash na 800,000. Next, letter B. Assume that the fair value of the building on December 31, 2020 is 4,300,000. What is the entry to record the change in fair value? So, on December 31, 2020, debit tayo ng loss on change in fair value na 500,000. Ito yung 4 million plus 800,000. Ilalas natin 4,300,000. Ayan, 500,000. So, debit loss in change in fair value na 500,000. Credit investment property building na 500,000. Next is impairment. So, any compensation from a third party for an investment property that is impaired, lost, or given up is recognized in profit or loss when the compensation become receivable. So, hanggat hindi pa tinare-receive or nagiging receivable, so any compensation from a third party ay hindi natin i-recognize. So, pero kung naging receivable na to, we recognize it in profit or loss. So, the debit tayo ng receivable, credit ng income.